Kamen Entchev here with Tom Casselman, back for another fun week of Salute Your Sports. We're calling it the NBA Finals Recap Week. What a short finals it was. If you remember, what was that, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, Tom? Both of us on the show said Nuggets in 5. We were correct. Very clean and easy series for the Nuggets. We'll go over why it was so easy. Nikola Jokic. Speaking of Jokic, we'll talk about whether he cemented himself as the best player in the NBA today. We'll go over the playoff run. Where does this rank on the most dominant playoff runs? Where does this rank for Jokic on the best playoff performances of all time? I mean, plenty of stats to come, but you and I both know this. Most points, rebounds, and assists in these playoffs. First time ever that's been done by Nikola Jokic. And can this Nuggets team become a dynasty? Because their whole starting lineup will be back next year and the year after that. So we'll see if Denver can win 2 or 3 finals in a row. We'll talk about that. A lot of history going on in sports. We had the Vegas Golden Knights win their first Stanley Cup yesterday. We had over the weekend Novak Djokovic, his 23rd major men's singles title, the most of all time. We had Pep Guardiola, Man City, winning the Champions League. It was Pep's second treble as a manager, first manager ever to do that. We had a lot of history at the Belmont Stakes as well. We have so much good stuff to go over. U.S. Open golf coming up. It's going to be an awesome show, Tom. Cannot wait to get started. You are probably the biggest Nuggets fan I know. How you feeling over there, Mr. Cosmo Kramer?
I'm feeling fantastic. Certainly, I have Nikola Jokic beat, as you can see. I am already home. Nikola Jokic will not be able to go home for another few days at least. The exasperation on his face when he found out that the parade for the NBA Finals championship is tomorrow, Thursday. He looked off to the side to the PR person or whoever. It was just like, what, Thursday? I have to go home.
He wants to celebrate with Serbia, drink beers, and ride his horses. Let the man have some fun.
I don't think I have ever seen a professional athlete encapsulate what the 9-to-5 American worker experiences on a daily and weekly basis as Nikola Jokic, and his desire to just be completely done with everything. But certainly it's easy to look at this as a 5-game series win, a gentlemanly sweep for the Denver Nuggets. And, you have the question phrased as, why was this postseason and finals run so easy for the Nuggets? I would actually say it wasn't necessarily all that easy as it kind of looks, because yes, they won in 5 games in the NBA Finals. They won in 4 against the LA Lakers, but pulled up a stat that I'm sure a lot of tangential or perhaps wagering fans would keep an eye on. In the playoffs.
7-4 seeds, is that what you're going to go with?
Well, no, I was going to go with Denver being, they were 12-3 during the playoffs, but they were only 9-6 against the spread, which means a lot of their games were actually really close. So I don't think that I think that all of these series.
16-4, Tom.
Is it 16-4?
I think
it would be helpful if I looked at something later than June 1st, 2023.
That might help. 16-4.
Against the spread in the playoffs?
Oh, no, I'm talking about just their wins. They were 16-4 record in the playoffs.
Yeah, they were 16-4 in the playoffs, but their record against the spread was a lot shorter, which, to me says, the series may have looked off balance, but how many of those games against the Lakers were, clear just blowouts, Denver completely winning? Same thing with the games against Miami. I mean, Miami was in most of the games.
3 out of 5.
3 out of 5 ain't bad.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think that the playoffs, when you look at the record, it looked easy for Denver, but it certainly didn't feel overly easy. And it felt like they really had to earn this one. As far as Nikola Jokic putting on this historic performance, Jamal Murray playing out of his mind. And every now and again, you get an Aaron Gordon 27-point game. You get Michael Porter Jr. With a double-double and putting in some pretty decent defensive effort, despite the fact that the Nuggets shot like 17% from 3 or something like that. Like, they were very good shooting from 3 all finals long. But this was a case where they got matchups that they were able to exploit all throughout the playoffs. particularly the one that nobody can really match up against. I mean, Nikola Jokic has cemented himself now as one of the greatest players of this era. Certainly, he is now, in that discussion of all of the all-time great big men, where you're, going from Wilt to Russell to Kareem to Shaq to Tim Duncan, Dirk Nowitzki, and now Nikola Jokic has absolutely put his name in that category. You could say Giannis if you want to say he's kind of like a more modern center, because his game is a little bit in between a type of thing. But
Depends
Jokic
whether you count power forward or center, because I got Giannis as a power forward, but I can go either way. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but like it looked quote unquote easy for the Nuggets, I think, because of the two-person game that Jokic and Murray were able to run, that they had been developing over however many years, and having, good health, good fortune throughout the playoffs, that they didn't suffer any sort of major injury scares throughout the playoffs, that nobody really got dinged up, and that they played smart basketball for the most part, not a lot of foul trouble, which means your stars are having a much broader impact on the game. So I think there's a lot of things that go into the Denver Nuggets and why they were so successful in this year's playoffs. But they certainly faced stiff competition all across the way and persevered, winning all of those close games or, couple possession type of games throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the no dust statement of the year.
Yeah.
Why did they go 16-4 in the postseason? Nikola Jokic. This man did not have a single bad game in the postseason. They say shooters shoot. Curry had a bad game, multiple bad games in the playoffs. LeBron had bad games in the playoffs. Durant had bad games in the playoffs. Nikola Jokic had nada, zilch, nonstop consistency. Look at his playoff statistics: 30 points, 13.5 rebounds, 9.5 assists, shot about 55% from the field, 46% from three. He didn't turn the ball over all that much. You talk about center. I would say he's probably more of a point guard than a center, a point center, 50-50, right? He is truly the positionless big man. So I'm going to go ahead and read you his worst game of the playoffs. Was the first game of the playoff series against the Timberwolves. His team won by 29 points. Did not have to play much in that game, obviously. 13 points, 14 rebounds. The worst game Nikola Jokic played in the entire playoffs. That's not bad for a worst game. You know how much I love my stats? I'm pulling these up. I'm going to go ahead and give you his game logs in the playoffs real quick. So the worst game, which I mentioned, was the first one: 13 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists. Then he goes 27, 9, and 9, 20 points, 11 rebounds, 12 assists, 43 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 28 points, 17 rebounds, 12 assists, 24 points, 19 rebounds, 5 assists, 39 points, 16 rebounds, 5 assists, 30, 17, and 17, 53 points, 4 rebounds, 11 assists. We got 29 points, 12 assists, 13 rebounds, 32 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists. We have 34 points, 21 rebounds, 14 assists, 23 points, 17 rebounds, 12 assists, 24 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 30 points, 14 rebounds, 13 assists, 27, 10, and 14 going rebound second, 41, 11, and 4, 32, 21, and 10, 23, 12, and 4, and 28 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists in the last game of the playoffs. Not a single bad game in there. Shooting percentages were very high in all these games. And the games that he got a little bit less assists, he got more rebounds. Vice versa, found a way to contribute. He is obviously the number one reason why it was so easy. The number two reason is health. Look, it's very hard to say what could they have done 2 years ago? What could they have done last year? But the facts are, if you listen to Jamal Murray in the post-NBA Finals press conferences, I start to believe him. He says, we could have done this 2 years ago. We could have done this last year. I mean, put this into perspective. The Denver Nuggets' second best player is Jamal Murray. The Denver Nuggets' third best player is Michael Porter Jr. It's not very easy when your second and third best players are constantly getting injured in the regular season, the postseason. So just having a healthy team was fantastic, and just getting everyone to fit in their roles. We talk about that on this show multiple times throughout the last few weeks. The Nuggets team knew the hierarchy. Like, you got your 1A star, your 1B star, and then you've got your other guys who are happy to contribute, and someone always steps up on that Denver team. But I mean, I'm going to go ahead and tell you they had 4 losses, but this is what it took for them to lose in these playoffs. Had a road overtime win against the T-Wolves, lost the game in the finals to, a Miami Heat team that, quite frankly, does not really get swept. That Heat culture, you were not going to sweep them. That's just who Miami is. And then you look at their 2 losses against the Suns. The first loss, Tom, Devin Booker made 20 of 25 field goals for 47 points and 9 assists. Kevin Durant had 39 points, 8 assists in that same game. The next game, 36 each for Durant and Booker, 12 assists for Booker, 6 for KD. So we had 2 of the best players in the league, 2 of the best scorers in the NBA, both playing at the very best level they can, and they still barely beat the Nuggets at home. So I know some of the games were close, but I think they're just very small margins in sports right now. There really is. I think the gaps are much smaller than they used to be. I'm not calling this an all-time great NBA team. I think that there's currently, the way the league is structured now, the superstars are so spread out. Each team has 1 or 2 superstars. And after what I saw from Jamal Murray, I'm ready to call him a superstar. I know he's a second-tier superstar. I know that. I'm not saying that he's a top 10 player in the league, but I think he cemented himself as at least top 20, if not top 15. This guy's going to be a perennial all-star for years to come, and I'm okay calling him a second-tier superstar. This Nuggets team, just phenomenal run that they had. I think Jokic and Murray made it easy. Michael Malone, the man is a phenomenal coach. He gets everyone to buy in. So I know you said that it didn't feel easy. You're right. I think they only won by 24 points the entire Lakers series or something like that. But in one way, it did feel easy to me because you never felt like this team was going to lose any of these series, even the close games. It just felt like they were in complete command. I mean, they never trailed in a series in these playoffs. You never really looked at them and you were like, can they, not win this? Because, I mean, I'm talking about heroic efforts. Even in that, like, game 4 that the Lakers made it close, LeBron went for 30 in the first half, and they still lost. So it's just it's tough to win games, but this Denver team did it on the back of Jokic. And we'll get to this later on in the show, but one of the most dominant playoff runs of all time for Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's certainly up there with some of the other all-time great postseason performances. I mean, certainly the most recent vintage, I would say, was Giannis Antetokounmpo a couple of years ago with the Bucks. I mean, I know the Warriors winning in between, but I don't know if that necessarily felt dominant for any one particular player because they have so many guys who can contribute. But I mean, there's certainly LeBron in Cleveland, kind of taking over, and almost he and Kyrie having twin great performances in that NBA Finals. But certainly Jokic and his run, I mean, it has to be, just from a statistical standpoint, one of the most dominant performances simply because he put up more triple doubles in the playoffs than anybody else did.
10.
And I know that's kind of it's a counting stat. It's not necessarily overly indicative of how well a player is playing. But if you look at win shares, if you look at his field goal percentage, and if you just use your eyes, certainly, like you said, he had no off games in this playoffs. I mean, maybe the closest thing to an off game that wasn't a blowout was maybe game 2 of the finals, where he put up 40-something points, and it's really only considered like an off game because he wasn't facilitating as a passer as much, which is really where his game and his effectiveness, originates. But it's crazy to say, like, oh, maybe that was the game that he struggled most, just because with him scoring, the rest of Denver's offense was really, really out of sync in that particular game. But I mean, when you look at a player and he's had no duds whatsoever in an NBA Finals, I mean, certainly that has to be one of the all-time great performances that we see on a playoff run.
Yeah, look, it's very hard. I know you're talking about Giannis. You look at what Giannis did a couple years ago, Tom.
Mhm.
Overall, I know we had the iconic finals performance, the iconic closeout game, but statistically and the feel of how it was
Mhm.
done, Giannis's playoff run as a whole, while very good, while not far off, was not what Jokic did. Because
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Jokic was actually even slightly better the rest of the playoffs in the NBA Finals. As great as he was in the finals, this wasn't even his best playoff performance, like playoff series. I mean, I think he was even better against the Lakers and probably
Mm.
even better
Mhm.
against the Suns. So I think you look at the entire playoff run, got to put it ahead of Giannis. Just from a statistical perspective, he's the guy with the most triple doubles ever, 10 in a playoff series. He has the first guy ever to lead the playoffs in points, rebounds, and assists, all three categories. That's just such dominance. You lead all three categories, which is crazy. The first guy to ever have at least 500 points, 250 rebounds, and 150 assists in a single postseason. Never been done before. The points, rebounds, assist statistic, there has actually been only one player in the history of the NBA who had a better PRA in playoff history. Can you name it? Just one season, one player. Ever. We're talking ever.
I mean, Wilt?
Wilt Chamberlain. And the only
Yeah,
reason
like
why
that's
the only reason Wilt got it, Thomas, he averaged 29 rebounds, which no one could really rebound against Wilt. So you put that into perspective, like points and assists accounted for. Statistically, this was the best run in playoff history. Now, also got to factor in era. Like it is pace of play. There's more possessions. There are more points being
Of course,
scored.
yeah.
So that's why it makes it hard for me to say it's definitively the best. I mean, you look at what LeBron did in 2016, leading Cleveland to the title, and he was actually even better in 2017. Averaged 34 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists in that playoff run. About half an assist less than Jokic, but about 4 points more. Jokic's averages were about 30, 13 and a half rebounds, 9.5 assists. I mean, there's many seasons where Michael Jordan put up, 36, 37 points over a playoff run. So obviously, we could put any one of MJ's runs up there too. We had Jerry West back in the day, Tom, in 1964-65, averaged 40.6 per game, 40.6 points per game over the entire playoffs. That was iconic. Elgin Baylor had right below him in point averages, bunch of rebounds as well. So I would say there's probably 4, 5, 6 other runs that are right on par with this one. It's very hard comparing eras, very hard comparing things. But I mean, his triple doubles are pretty efficient. High field goal percentage, high 3-point percentage, high free throw percentage, and even like 3.5 turnovers for how much he handles the ball. That's pretty much on par with what a lot of superstars average. I mean, we have Westbrook who gets 4.5, 5. Sure, he's more inefficient, but Jokic had an efficient triple-double. Never felt like he was hunting stats. He was always making the right plays. So it's very hard to put just one playoff run. I did hear this on the radio. As far as win shares, I believe that he had the 4th best postseason run ever on win shares. I want to say that it was Jordan, LeBron, and maybe Wilt were ahead of him. So different metrics.
Pretty good company.
But, I would say easily top 5, if not number 1. From a pure statistical standpoint, you factor in points, rebounds, assists. No one's had as good stats in a playoff run than Nikola Jokic. And a lot of it, too, which is crazy to think about, he's even better than what the stats show you. I know it's weird to say that, but it's just like LeBron, Curry, the GOAT Leo Messi in soccer. Think about how many assists these guys get. How many points does the team score because of the mere threat they have? How many hockey assists do these guys get? Because you look at Nikola Jokic play, you look at LeBron James play, you look at Leo Messi play. Those are the 3 guys in the history of sports, Tom, that I look at the game and I feel like they're most in control. I've never seen someone else more in control than those 3, which is crazy to think about because, Magic Johnson's up there, great point guard, but all these great assist people, all these point guards, and it's a point center and basically a guy who should be a power forward in LeBron James. And you know how big on LeBron I am. The fact that I'm
Sure.
even comparing Nikola Jokic to LeBron is crazy. Certainly his first 4 or 5 years, not on the level of LeBron, but this man is ready to enter the pantheon of, all-time greats. He's only 28, Tom. There's no reason why he wouldn't be a top 10 player of all time by the time he's done. I think if he retired today, Tom, I would put him currently as the 4th best center of all time, and he might surpass all of them when he's done. I put Wilt, Shaq, and Kareem. That's it. He's ahead of Russell for me. You know where I stand on Russell and his lack of scoring, lack of shooting. Great winner, great person, but Bill Russell shot about 45%, averaged 14, 15 points per game. I cannot put Bill Russell ahead of Nikola Jokic. I'm sorry. Hakeem Olajuwon, Duncan, Robinson, Ewing, these guys are all great. Jokic, better than all of them, Tom. Right now, if he retired today, he is the 4th best center of all time for me, and he's a top 15 player all time, maybe if he retired today, but he's got plenty more years going. When it's all said and done, he'll be in the top 10. Real quick on dominant postseason runs. I know we skipped through that, but 16-4 this season for the Nuggets. It's among the better runs in recent memory. The most dominant I saw was probably the 2016-17 Warriors. That was Steph, KD, and Clay, 16-1, Tom. You never felt like that team was going to lose a game. That Warrior team, I think we could agree, is better than the Nuggets overall because they had 3 Hall of Famers. Denver has one, probably. We'll see what happens with Murray if he can get there, 1 or 2. And then the 0-1, the 2000-2001 Lakers, 15-1 in the postseason, back when it was best of 5 in the first round. The only game they lost was Shaq and Kobe losing to Allen Iverson in a game that AI had 48 points, 6 assists, and 5 steals. You might remember that game as the step over Tyronn Lue game for the Sixers. And then the Bulls in 90-91, 15-2. They swept the rival Pistons, lost 1 game against Magic Johnson and the Lakers in the finals. That was the Bulls' first championship run. That was certainly the most dominant they had. And obviously Jordan, speaking of dominant performances, what he did in 98 with the Last Dance Bulls, that's got to go up there as well. Just the way he led that team. But Jokic, right up there on the pantheon of greatest performances ever. And really, he's kind of taken that point to his game where he's definitely entering the greats. So let's talk more Jokic. I know we've talked a lot about him, but honestly, Tom, this is my fault. This is my fault. If I had to look at the show the last 2 years we've done this show, we have not spent nearly enough time on Nikola Jokic. So we're making up for lost time today. Is he definitively the best player in the NBA today? I'm going to frame this a little differently for you because I know you always say this. One of the greatest qualities that you can have. What's the saying? Availability. Say the saying for me.
Availability is the greatest ability that you can have.
So I'm going to frame this question a little different because I think he's been the most available of any superstar the last 2-3 years. So I'm going to frame this to really put you on the spot and really make you pick a player now. I'm not talking about all-time players. I'm not talking about primes. I'm going to say everyone is 100% healthy for every single game going into next season. Who's the best player in the NBA? I'm going to say KD is 100% healthy, no injuries. Giannis 100% healthy, Curry 100% healthy, LeBron's healthy. All these other main players are 100% healthy. Is Nikola Jokic the best player in the NBA if everyone is healthy today at the current moment?
I'm going to say yes. And that's something that I wouldn't have even said really pre-playoffs necessarily. But just like with the way that he has played over the course, if we're doing, a magical fantasy draft, all the teams are now picking fresh teams out of all the available players in the NBA. Nikola Jokic, for me, is the number 1 pick. And that's whether you want to say it's just for one season, just for one game, or even for the rest of a career, because the thing that we're kind of seeing with his game is that his game is going to age very, very well because 100%. So little of it relies on athleticism. I mean, that's what makes LeBron James's career so remarkable is the fact that yes, he has all the great talent and the vision being able to pass, but that a big part of his game was his superior athleticism and size combination, and that LeBron James has maintained that for the most part over the course of however many years. Nikola Jokic, I think we're going to see a similar level of longevity
He's going to stay big.
because if anything, the more you play, the faster you process, and he arguably already has the fastest processing capabilities in the NBA. And sure, he's aided by the fact that he's 7 feet tall and can see over entire defenses. I mean, that's certainly part of it, having the physical attributes. But I mean, I'm going to go with a guy that I know I can build a team around because he can do so many different things. He can back you down into the post. He can do some traditional low post moves. He can set up right, at the top of the key, get in the middle of a zone defense and just pick you apart with passes. He's not a great 3-point shooter, but he's certainly a respectable enough threat that he can
He's
knock
good.
down an outside shot. So, and then on the defensive side of things, uh, he's big enough and good enough at getting in the way without fouling that I'm okay with the fact that he's not a true rim protector. That basically he's just, he's a moving beam that just kind of like stands in the way of everything, and that's basically how he plays defense. I'm going to take the fact that he's not as athletically gifted as, say, Giannis or LeBron or Anthony Davis or any of these other massive human beings with superior athleticism. I'm still going to pick him because I know what I'm getting on the offensive side of the ball is going to far outstrip whatever deficiencies he may have on defense. And he's smart enough to be a passable, serviceable defender, kind of like how we think of Steph Curry. He's not by any stretch of the imagination a lockdown defender, but he's good enough that he's not a liability all the
He's
time out on
pesky.
the
He gets a
floor.
lot of steals. And I'll say
Yeah.
this about defense, Tom. Rebounding is part of defense. And I
Yeah,
know
that's
part of
closing
the
out the possession. Sure.
I know part of it is because he's just big, which is weird because he's athletic in the sense that he takes up a lot of space. It's easy for him to back you down with sheer power, even though he doesn't have the speed and jumping ability
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. I'm also going to say Jokic is the number one player in basketball at the moment. It's close. He's not way better than a healthy Durant and Giannis. He's not way better than a healthy Curry. And let's not forget about LeBron James, because LeBron James obviously past his prime, but you look at what he was doing before he got hurt this season. He actually didn't play as good in the playoffs, and part of that was coming off an injury. So and then I think there's obviously Luka's out there, Embiid is out there, but Jokic has something that we kind of just talked about. It's kind of that consistency. We know what we're going to get from him. LeBron obviously is still very imposing, but he's not quite as dominant as scoring in the paint. He could
Mm-hmm.
have maybe an off game shooting. He still pass a lot, but Jokic is a better passer than Kevin Durant. As good as Kevin Durant has gotten at passing, it's much improved. He can still beat you more passing the basketball. Same goes for Giannis. Giannis and Durant, more athletic. Durant's a better shooter, but Jokic has the ability to beat you more with passing the ball than those guys. And him backing down, I think his scoring gets vastly underrated, Tom, because of how
Mm-hmm.
good of a passer he is. It's like LeBron. It's the same thing. I mean, LeBron's the NBA's all-time leading scorer. He's up there for most points per game. We underrate LeBron scoring. We do the same thing with Jokic because he is unstoppable one-on-one. And that's where it leaves you as such a nightmare because if you double team him, he'll hit the open guy. And if you don't, he'll score on you. And I think he's just a little bit better at finishing down low. He's craftier. I know that, LeBron and KD, Giannis, they can post up, but I just trust Jokic more in the post to score the ball. And I think that right now, with the way he's seeing the game, the way he's playing, I mean, you look at the statistics, the way he's impacting the game. I mean, I was going to say, we've never seen this before, but LeBron basically has been doing this for the last 5-6 years, maybe 7-8 years, but Jokic is doing it from the center position, which in some ways makes it even harder to guard him. Because I mean, LeBron's hard to guard too, but like, what do
Sure.
you do against Jokic? I mean, literally, I've only seen this done by one other person. That's LeBron James, and like Joel Embiid. There's no way he's even on Jokic's level because Embiid, again, he's a center who rebounds, scores. Yeah, I know he's got that sick mid-range game, but he doesn't pass like Jokic does. I mean, Nobody passes like Jokic does. In all
Mhm.
honesty, Tom, if I had to rate the best passers of all time, just pure passing ability and vision, no particular order because all are great. It'd be Larry Bird, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Magic Johnson, and maybe Chris Paul. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like, but Jason Kidd's up there. But I mean, I would put him as a top 4 passer of all time with LeBron, Bird, and Magic. That's how good Jokic is at that. So yeah, more consistent for me, impacts the game in more ways. And what's impressive is he really is such a humble guy. He is
Mhm.
very humble. And I'm going to say this, Tom. European people, not always the most humble. Serbian people, not always the most humble.
I'll
Novak
take your word for it.
yeah, I mean, you know me. I'm not the most humble guy. I'm European. So it kind of goes against like everything a superstar should be. He's generally a humble person. He's generally a great teammate. He's a great person. He's sort of like a breath of fresh air, Nikola Jokic. And
Mhm.
Kendrick Perkins, you may not want to respect him because he's this slow, big guy in the NBA, but put some respect on his name. The 41st overall pick, the lowest pick ever to win the finals MVP and league MVP. Nikola Jokic is simply the best player in basketball at the current moment. Done. Any discussion that was left, the knock on him was he didn't do it in the playoffs. He's answered that
Mhm.
bell. He's the best player in basketball.
Yeah, and just really quickly on that before we move on to looking down the road, I mean, that knock on him about not getting it done in the playoffs, like you mentioned earlier in the show, completely ignores the fact that he's playing without his 2 best, teammates as far as offensive options go. And I mean, sure, they got swept by the Warriors last year, but you look at that team and you say, can anybody in the NBA
No,
replace Nikola Jokic and win a game against that Warriors team? Or 2 years ago, if you take out Nikola Jokic and put in any other superstar, do they have that, any more success? So I think that knock, and this is where I kind of get a little bit chapped when people talk about, oh, they haven't done it when it matters the most. Well, like, let's look at the context around those things. We can
sure.
certainly look at what the Nuggets were in
Team
years
game.
prior. So that leads us kind of dovetail nicely into looking ahead for the Denver Nuggets. Whereas you mentioned, everybody who is on the team is under contract for next year as far as their,
2 more
I think
years.
7-man rotation. Well, Bruce Brown is a
Yeah,
free
no,
agent
no,
after
but
next season.
right. No, you're right on Bruce Brown, but their
Mhm.
starting lineup, next
Starting
two
lineup, yeah.
years, everyone in the starting lineup. Bruce
Mhm.
Brown, yes, 1 more year. He's their 6 man off the bench, but their starting lineup
Yeah, I was going
all
rotation
under
on that one.
contract
Yeah.
for the next 2 years, Tom. At least 2 years. Jokic is
Yeah.
more, obviously, but
Mhm.
everyone's at least 2 years.
Yes, that kind of, leads into, if you want to make a little bit of a wager, I'm not sure necessarily where you could find it, this posted or something like that. This is more of the sort of bet you make at the barber shop or with your friends. But over under 1.5 more titles for Nikola Jokic. So we're just going to assume that Denver is going to be on for a second title, which certainly is possible. I don't know if I'd even necessarily guarantee them for that necessarily, but can Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets get to 3 championships? Can they be a dynasty? Or is this going to be kind of more in the vein of, say, the Milwaukee Bucks or the Dirk Nowitzki Dallas Mavericks, where you've got your star player, you've got really good play from your top complementary guys, and you have a great run, you make it to the playoffs, everything rolls your way, but you never quite get back there necessarily. And certainly the book isn't closed on Giannis and the Bucks, but it definitely feels like we wouldn't say that the Bucks are a dynasty, for example. Do the Nuggets put themselves up as a dynasty, or are they going to be kind of in this recent trend of one-offs?
I'm a little bit torn on this one, Tom, because still, as much as we're hyping up Jokic and this Nuggets team, I'm not ready to put him as an all-time great team. And
Hmm.
most of the all-time great teams have at least 3 rings in a 7, 8 year span. I mean, when you think of dynasty, you got to get minimum 3 in like 8 years, I would say. Um,
Yeah, and
that's got to be.
I would even say in a shorter window than that. I mean, the
I know
San
this.
Antonio Spurs and what they did, that's like what stretches out the window. But when you think of a dynasty, you think about like the Larry Bird Celtics. That's a very defined, concise area. Same thing for the Magic, Lakers, the Jordan Bulls.
Yeah,
the O'Neal and Bryant Lakers,
Yeah.
for example. So I would say like the Spurs kind of skew that a little bit. So it kind of depends on how you want to define dynasty
It's
necessarily.
just so interesting how different the NBA is now because, when we had the whole era of Warriors, Cavaliers, the super team era, and we
Hmm.
still kind of have that, but like now there's just so many amazing players in the NBA, and every team seemingly has one superstar, and most of the real contenders have two superstars. That's really true. I mean, how many teams can you think of that have made deep playoff runs? I mean, maybe the Bucks, and again, depends on where you land on Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. But if you have like two other really good guys, because again, I think Jamal Murray, I think, is better than Middleton or Holiday. He proved it in these playoffs.
Mm.
But I mean, again, the Bucks may be a slight exception, but most of the teams in the last 7-8 years that have been in the Final Four in the NBA Finals, most of them have had two big time players at least. Not all. The Raptors, I know, probably another exception to that rule. But again, that was because of injuries. But you look at the Warriors, you look at the Cavs when they had Kyrie. I know LeBron at one point carried them themselves, but they were in position to have two. They just had injuries. But you look at the Lakers back with Shaq and Kobe. Even the Spurs had a lot of really good players. The Warriors obviously always had Steph and Clay, Durant as well. So the talent is so like evenly dispersed right now in the NBA. And like we were saying like 5-6 years ago that it was basically the Warriors and the Cavs every year in the finals. It was boring. None of these other teams were as good. It's kind of changed. And the super
Hmm.
teams still exist, but they're so spread out. And there's just so much talent in the NBA. Like I don't think the talent pool has ever been better. Like you look at what the 20th best player in the league today, he might be the 10th best player 20 years ago, 30 years ago. There are just so many really good players. So for me, Tom, tell me if you agree with this. I would say this Denver Nugget team, talent level, roughly average for an NBA championship team. I'm not saying
Hmm.
they're one of the best teams to ever do it. They're not one of the worst. I would say somewhere in the middle. Would you agree? Is that a fair take?
Absolutely, yeah, because they kind of fit. Like I know you mentioned the Raptors, and like the Raptors, you have a star performance from Kawhi Leonard, but you also have role players like Pascal Siakam playing at their absolute peak. I think that's where Denver kind of falls, where in aggregate over the course of a career, these guys are pretty good players.
Yeah.
But
Minus Jokic, who's great,
well,
obviously.
yeah, like you have your star, and then you have good to really good players all around. You know, the thing I like about this era of championship winners is that you have that kind of central star and then guys that happen to play at the very best of their abilities, and you don't necessarily get that for a stretch run, but I feel like that kind of is what makes it a little bit more special as opposed to it's just the same two heavyweights year in and year out. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree
But
that on that
but
this would
so
be an average
so
winner.
so my point though is like I'm not really winning to crown them as an all-time great team, but timing really matters. So for me, like their best bet to win a championship is next year. That's their best bet because the whole core is together. I think
Hmm.
Michael Porter Jr. could take another step in his game. Already
Yep.
got better on defense. He's such a huge talent. He was the number one recruit out of high school. He was being called the next Durant. He takes a step in his game. Can this playoff run inspire Jamal Murray to do this in the regular season? Because keep in mind, he had not a great year this year, but he
Hmm.
was coming off an ACL injury. Didn't have a chance to really work on his game. It was all about getting back healthy. So I just look at the league right now. There's not another team that really scares me. So I'm guessing over 10 years, I'm going to say, yes, Jokic can get 3 titles in his Denver Nuggets career. I don't know about this team being a dynasty. I don't know if they're good enough to win 3 in a row, but I think they can win 2 in a row in this landscape. I mean, look out for the Warriors next year. We'll see,
Hmm.
what their last run could be for the Golden State Warriors if they make a move in free agency. That'll be a dangerous team in the West for me. Probably their biggest competition is probably the Warriors and probably the Lakers, but I would probably favor Denver right now against both of those teams. So they've got the right roster, they've got the right fits. Here's the thing about Jokic. Like,
Mhm.
These guys under contract the next 2-3 years, everybody loves to play with an unselfish superstar, like someone who's willing to pass you the ball. I mean, why do you think all these guys join LeBron James? Because they know that LeBron is going to get them the ball. They can still get theirs, still get stats, still get glory, and get a ring. Any superstar would love to play with Nikola Jokic. He'll set him up. Jokic is okay with being the second leading scorer if he has to be. I mean, Murray and Jokic were what, roughly the same level of scoring in the NBA Finals, give or take a point or two here and there. He
Mhm.
doesn't have to be the leading scorer. So a lot of these guys who, are superstars, second-tier superstars, maybe even first-tier superstars, they could coexist with Jokic. So even if, let's say, Murray and Porter Jr. go elsewhere 2, 3, 4 years down the road, who's to say they don't get another superstar? And what the Nuggets have is smart culture and a smart organization. Brian Windhorst used this term. I'm going to steal it from Brian. Organic. They
Mhm.
didn't go and get teams in free agency. Like, yeah, they picked up Bruce Brown. Everyone has to get someone in free agency. Good move for them.
Sure.
But you look at their squad. Jokic drafted, Jamal Murray drafted, Michael Porter drafted. A lot of their best players were draft picks, and none of them were top 5 picks. Murray was number 7.
Mhm.
Porter was like 12, 13, 14, something like that. Don't quote me on that. And Jokic was 41. So they went out and drafted in the draft. And that's what's impressive about that team, because they can put together a winning roster. So I will say, yes, he's going to get 3 rings. He'll find a way. He's an all-time great player for me. I look at the all-time great players of this last era, Tom. Who do we have? I mean, we have LeBron, we have Durant, Curry, a little bit before that, Duncan,
Mhm.
Kobe. All these guys got minimum 3 rings. I think Nikola Jokic is too good of a player to not get 3 rings. And the whole market thing doesn't matter as much anymore, right? Anyone could be a superstar in any market. So the fact that Denver's a smaller market, I don't think it has anything to do with it. So, yes, I'll say Jokic gets to at least 3 rings for his
Mhm.
NBA career. And the Nuggets, for me, I would bet the field, but I'll put him as the favorite for next year.
Yeah, I think you got to put the Nuggets as a favorite for next year. I would say Jokic, can he get to 3? I would say yes. I would put my faith in that as well. It might not be all in this window, but that's because, like I said, his game is so good that he can go play another 10 years and pick up a couple of rings. Maybe a little bit more sporadically or in a different window, kind of like you mentioned. But that is going to wrap up our NBA coverage. It has been a wild season. I mean, we haven't even touched on some of the recent craziness with John Morant, and who knows when we'll be hearing about that. But I would imagine
Yeah.
shortly after the parade in Denver, we'll be hearing about John Morant. How much time is he going to be missing next year? And of course, the NBA is always crazy with free agency, draft, trades. There's going to
Yeah.
be a ton of stuff to be looking forward to over this offseason, of course, before things tip off again next autumn. But a phenomenal, phenomenal year for the league.
One more thing, Tom. Let's give a shout out to our own Tom Casselman here. You had the Nuggets before the playoffs started winning the whole thing, and I think you had them in the finals in your regular season prediction. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that sounds right. Yeah, I don't.
Uh,
I was basically on Boston and Denver the entire year, and I may have flipped them back and forth a couple of different times. But I mean, I've been picking Denver for a couple of years, so
yeah.
blind squirrel in an acorn, as my
You
dad might say.
got to give you credit, Tom Casselman, the Denver Nugget champion over here. Nicely done, sir, on your Nuggets prediction.
Absolutely. Well, another prediction that we didn't necessarily do so well on at the
No, not
onset
this
was the
time.
Stanley Cup final. We said, hey, let's go for a little bit of an upset. Why not? The Florida Panthers over the Vegas Golden Knights. And the Vegas Golden Knights said, well, what if we just outscore by like 2 or 3 times our opponents in this series? I mean, certainly there are a couple of different keys. The one that I would kind of look at the most, first off, Vegas just had more talent throughout this series over the Florida Panthers. But then you look at is it Taychuk? I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Kachuk.
Kachuk,
Kachuk.
thank you for the Panthers suffering a collarbone injury. He was their best player, and it certainly seemed like after that point not a whole lot of luck for the Panthers as the Vegas Golden Knights made quick work of them, closing that one out in 5 games as well.
Yeah, so I mean, you look at some of the scores in this series, they were so lopsided. Vegas won 9-3 in the closing game. They had a 7-2 win, a 5-2 win. I mean, Jonathan Marchessault was the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. Jack Eichel, also great. The two best players in the playoffs, the two best players all postseason long. They were huge difference makers. The biggest difference, honestly, was goaltending and defense. I know I watched a little bit of the Stanley Cup, but I was working at work, had it on in the background, try to catch some here and there. But you know me, Tom, I love analyzing the box score. And I looked at the box score. I was a little bit surprised for this series. And sure, some of this is you get behind, you press more. So it's not end all be all. But for the series, the Florida Panthers had 3 more shots on goal. They outshot Vegas. And they got outscored by 14 goals in the series. That's kind of unheard of for that to happen. So, I mean, obviously, I'm not a hockey goaltending expert. I don't pretend to be. I don't know that much about the technique of defense. You know, certainly I grew up playing basketball. I grew up playing baseball, played soccer. Never played hockey in my lifetime other than, in floor hockey in gym class.
Sure.
Maybe a little bit of roller hockey a couple times when I was a young kid, but just leads me to believe the goaltending and the defense was clearly much better for Vegas because the two teams had roughly the same amount of scoring opportunities, and Vegas scored 14 more goals in this series. Just crazy. Got to give it up to Vegas. It was their 6th season in franchise history. Already been in the Stanley Cup twice, and they just won their first Stanley Cup in 6 years. One of the shortest runs to ever do it. I think I saw that it was like the Bucks back in the day, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Only a handful of teams have done it quicker since becoming a new franchise. So hats off to the Vegas Golden Knights on a truly dominant Stanley Cup win and just a terrific playoffs for Vegas. They were the better team, despite, the stats should show you the team should be pretty close. But what's the saying? It's the same deal in soccer. You got to finish your opportunities. They finished their opportunities. They only had, I think it was like 31 shots in the last game, and they had 9 goals. That's almost 1 in 3 of your shots going in the back of the net. I know one of them was an empty netter, but still, hats off to Vegas on winning their first ever Stanley Cup and first time champions. The Nuggets, 47 years for them to win a championship. The Vegas Golden Knights, just 6. But hey, history in both sports for sure.
Absolutely. And a lot more history as well. As you mentioned off the top of the show, Novak Djokovic winning his 23rd Grand Slam title. That is the most among men. Man City, Pep Guardiola getting a treble in soccer, which I'm sure
I can explain
you'll explain to me. The question is, did he get the base as well? We'll talk about that. We've got Jenna Antonucci becoming the first female trainer to win the Triple Crown after the Belmont Stakes are her winning.
A Triple Crown race. Just to be clear, I may have written that wrong. Triple Crown race.
No. My reading comprehension isn't great.
You're good.
So which is the most impressive record of the 3? I know where I'm going on this one. I'm interested to see where you are.
Yeah. Look, first off, all 3 are impressive because none of them have ever happened. I mean, it's never happened. It's the first female trainer to win a Triple Crown race. Very, very impressive. You look at Novak Djokovic, 23 major titles, singles titles, that is, never happened. No one ever has done it. And the treble, by the way, for soccer, you've got your Champions League, which is the main European Cup. The best teams in Europe all playing there. It's the biggest prize in club soccer. Then you have your regular season league, which is like the English league, the Spanish league. And then each of these leagues also have a cup during the season. So to win the treble, you are winning your league championship, the League Cup. So basically, it's like you have the NBA regular season champion. It's the same team who wins the regular season also wins the finals. But in soccer, the cumulative regular season standings actually are more prestigious than the League Cup. So the League Cup is like the third best thing you can win. Number one is Champions League. Number two, your league, and then your League Cup. In perspective, Tom Casselman, there's been only 8 teams in the history of soccer, which has been around forever. There's, so many teams in soccer. The treble has been won by 8 different teams in the history of soccer. Barcelona, my boys, with Leo Messi, have done it twice. Bayern Munich has done it twice as well. So 10 total times by 8 different teams. Pep Guardiola, in the history of soccer, has accounted for 20% of these happenings because he did it with Barca in 2009 and now Man City more recently. So all 3 are very impressive. I know you're going to go with the women's trainer as your number 1 most impressive, so I'm going to go vice versa. I'm going to say that's the least impressive. Not to take anything away from her. It's a historic run. I think that we are seeing the growth of women's sports. We're seeing there's so much more progress to be made, Tom. By no means am I saying that we are anywhere near where we should be in respecting women's sports because, quite frankly, we're not. But we see some more women's referees. We see more women's coaches. The fact that she's the first trainer, if you look it up, there's very few female trainers. So I think there's going to be more out there as the sport continues to grow. So there's a lot more soccer coaches, a lot more tennis players that have had the opportunity to do what Djokovic and Pep did. So for me, while historic, incredible, it's also a one-time thing. She did it one time. It was one race, one moment. That is why she goes number 3 on my most historic stuff this weekend. Number 2, I'll surprise you. It's going to be Pep Guardiola. As impressive as it is to win all 3 competitions twice, never been done before. Again, that's a long season. He had the best team. He had the most talented team as the coach. He did his job. But again, we're talking about 6 cumulative championships here, Tom. It's a numbers game, 6. Novak Djokovic got 23, and what makes it most impressive, for the most part, he played in Rafa Nadal and Roger Federer's era. We have the 3 best tennis players of all time, and no one's even disputing that. It's not even close, to be honest. I mean, Pete Sampras had 14 majors. That was the most ever. Federer has 20. Nadal has 22. Djokovic has 23. Imagine how many more each one of these guys would have if they didn't have to go up against each other. I mean, the big reason for Djokovic is you look at the last 4 or 5 years, Federer got older, got injured, retired now. Nadal, the last 4 or 5 years, has been injured. I'm not necessarily convinced Novak is necessarily better than them. I mean, for me, I have him like on a virtual tie, all 3. The reason why Novak has, 1 more than Nadal and 3 more than Federer is because he simply stayed healthier later on in his career. That's a big part of it. Health, as you know, matters a lot. But I got to say 23 of these with the 2 best players, the 2 best other players all time in your era is incredible. I mean, think about this. There's only 4 majors in a year. So, I mean, and Djokovic has almost all of these within the last 10 years. I think he had only a handful before the last 10 years. So let's just say he's won, 20 majors in the last 10 years. That means he is winning 50% of the majors. 50%. That means he's got to win 6 straight matches against the best players in the world, including Nadal and Federer, who he met in almost all of these runs, if not both of them in some of these runs. I think it's 6 straight matches. I think it's like 64 or 128, something like that to start a tournament. Just wildly impressive. I don't think his record is ever going to be beaten, Tom. Never, ever. This record is not falling. Will there be another player, another coach to win, 2 trebles in their career? 100% it's going to happen. Will there be another female trainer who's going to get a win at a Triple Crown race? 100% will happen in the history of sports. I'm willing to bet, Tom, that, and I never want to say never, but at least in our lifetime, I find it very hard to believe that someone's going to win 23 Grand Slam single titles. 23! That's so many! Not possible. This is one of the arguably top 5 most iconic records in the history of all of sports. So yeah, for me, easy decision. A lot of respect for Jenna and the historic movement she made. A lot of respect for Pep Guardiola. I mean, honestly, if you ask me, who do I like more, Pep or Novak? In a heartbeat, Pep Guardiola.
Mhm.
I'm a Barcelona fan, Barca player, Barca coach. I love Pep Guardiola with all of my heart. But this question, to be frank, Tom, is very easy. It is definitely Novak Djokovic.
Well, I'm going to surprise you and agree with you 100% because of all
Okay.
the different reasons that you listed. I mean, how long have we talked about? Because we like looking at rivalries. I mean, you've got Bird and Magic, you've got Kobe, LeBron for like a little bit of their career when they overlapped a little bit of overlap, not a ton though with Jordan and Kobe. We're always looking for the next thing. We're always looking for somebody, Tiger and Phil Mickelson, for example, is another great one in golf. And for the longest time in tennis, it was Federer and Nadal, and then Novak Djokovic is like, yeah, he's the third guy who's also pretty good, but these are the two guys that we're marketing as kind of the
Sure.
rivals facing up against each other. And so I think it's the most impressive that he's overcome both of these guys to win and to remain as healthy as he has. And I know this gets like a little bit controversial with how he basically carried himself during the COVID outbreak and how he reacted to different countries having different rules and stipulations for, hey, if you want to come here and participate in this event, we need a certain level of vaccination status in order for everybody to compete in a safe environment. And he eschewed that. And so he could have perhaps more titles
You could have
at
more,
this point
100%.
if he had decided that was important to him. He decided not to. Don't necessarily have to agree with how he felt on that, but nonetheless, uh, he has kept himself in amazing shape. He has kept himself remarkably healthy. I mean, if you were to tell me, hey, in that semifinals against Alcaraz, somebody is going to have cramps, I would not have picked the 20-something to be the
Yeah.
one who to not play up to that level
Money for
with
me there.
Grant. Well, yeah, that works out nicely for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely think that all these accomplishments are great. All of them are worthy of note. But certainly Djokovic, with what he has accomplished, I think that is the most impressive of the three, the most historic of the three. Because, like you said, looking at the tennis landscape, we don't really have the next generation kind of set and defined as who's going to overtake the old guard. I mean, that's typically what we see in a lot of different sports. We see the young buck overtake the current top guy. If you want to go football, that's like a team game. But you can say, okay, we're transitioning from Brady to Mahomes and talking about this all time great status, kind of the face or the standard bearer of the league. You go to the NBA, and it went from Jordan to Bryant to LeBron, and there's a whole host of guys who can be there to take up that mantle as the face of the league when LeBron steps down. I don't know who that's necessarily going to be for tennis once Djokovic
It's
hangs it
Alcaraz.
up. It's probably, but he hasn't necessarily won enough to
Yeah.
fully assume that mantle. He
One
still has to
major.
earn that. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm saying is like I don't know, like you said, if we will see somebody top that many majors because it is so difficult to win and be that healthy and play for that long and be that dominant. I mean, we haven't seen, like I said, the next young person who's kind of showing off that unstoppable quality. Not there yet, and it might skip a little bit of a generation. We might go through a period where there's going to be a lot of open Grand Slam titles that anybody can pick up and win if they just happen to be playing just at the peak of their abilities for those tournaments. I think it might be a little while before we see the next truly dominant one or two guys who are going and battling back and forth.
Yeah, and real quick, I watch a lot of tennis, Tom, one of my favorite sports. There's a lot of young guys who I think are going to split those titles. Like you said, Alcaraz will
Hmm.
probably be the leading guy, but Alexander Zverev, who was in the French Open semis, very good young player. Casper Ruud, who was in the final. So a host of guys. Tsitsipas, who you used to like, but then you learn not to like him. There's a lot
Yeah.
of these guys
Yeah.
who will be competing for majors. I don't know if there's a single one that's even going to get to 10 in this current
Mhm.
batch of players. I mean, Alcaraz is the youngest, the most talented. He might get to 10, but 23, not going to happen.
Absolutely. So that brings us to the U.S. Open. We're going to have some golf this weekend for those of you who will be watching and partaking in the event. As far as picking a winner goes, I mean, it's kind of hard to go very far off the top leaderboard. I mean, I probably oscillate back and forth between Scheffler and John Rahm, but I mean, Scheffler won it last year. I think I'll pick him for a repeat. He's certainly one of the top golfers in the game right now, and if he's putting as well as he did and finishing each hole that he did last year, I think he's going to take it down for sure.
Yeah, I don't want to pick Scotty Scheffler just because he is the outright favorite. So I want to
Sure.
mix it up a little bit instead. So I have two names written down, and I'm having an internal struggle where to go with this. So the second best betting odds is John Rahm. The
Hmm.
fourth best betting odds is my boy Rory McIlroy, which, by the way, Scheffler is ranked first in the world. Rahm is second, McIlroy third. So I'm not going very far. Although I know
Hmm.
some of those live guys are what disqualified for the rankings for now, even
For
though
now,
the
yeah, yeah.
tours are merging. I know there's Brooks Koepka, who I can't stand personally. So I'm feeling an iconic performance from John Rahm and Rory McIlroy, both. Two of the most outspoken guys against live golf. Hats off
Hmm.
to you guys. I saw John Rahm's press conference. Actually was really good. Actually, he's been more against it after it happened than Rory. Rory was more like sort of like resigned that it happened. Like, yeah, I don't love it, but I get it. It happened. We'll
Hmm.
move on. John Rahm actually went and said, Tom, that he was like, it feels like the leadership let us down. It was like such a good quote from John Rahm. He's a huge fan of Ted Lasso, my current favorite TV show. He actually has the quote from Ted Lasso: "Be a goldfish. Goldfish has 10-second memory. Something doesn't go your way, get back up and
Hmm.
dominate." So I'm a little torn between those two. I'm gonna say Rory hasn't won in a while. Let's go Rory McIlroy, but
Sure.
keep your eyes out for John Rahm. Both guys have won the U.S. Open before. Both guys know what they're doing. Major champions. So I'm going to say Rory first, John Rahm second at the U.S. Open this upcoming weekend.
Sounds great. That brings us to the locks of the week, where I continue my slide 1 and 2. You continue your ascension 2 and 1. Let's do the recaps, and then we'll get to our picks.
Yeah. So I'm saving it for the end, right? Right when we're about to be done with the locks for this season. I know we'll hit on this a little bit at the end of the show, but
Mhm.
we'll have a few shows this summer, but we'll go more full throttle every week again when college football rolls around. So we may not do locks. I think we'll do a show in a few weeks, but we may not do locks then. We may or may not do. We'll revisit this. But Tom, I'm pretty sure you're going to be the champion for this season. I've been rolling much better. I'm definitely the champion the last month, but you do still have the better overall record, Casselman. Don't sell yourself short. I was 2-1 this week, and the one that really paid off the most, plus money Djokovic, plus 170 to beat Carlos Alcaraz. I told you, Tom, how in the world was Novak plus 170? And yes, I'm going to acknowledge this. It was 1 set to 1 set before Alcaraz started cramping up. Could have been a very different match. But look, did he cramp up because of the heat? Did he cramp up because he was nervous? I'm not sure. But I knew Novak was going to find a way to win. And when he did, I actually bet that online, cashed in handsomely on that
Mhm.
Djokovic plus 170. He won in 3 sets to 1. I had, of course, Jokic over 50 and a half points, rebounds, assists in game two, 63 total. No problem for the best basketball player in the world. 32 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists. Just a good old 63 spot. And then the one I did miss was Mets Braves under 9.5 runs. Braves won 7-5, so 12 runs in that game. You were 1-2. Nuggets -3 against the Heat. Nuggets winning 109-94. So you had the Giants -1 in 5 innings against the Rockies. Rockies up 3-0 after 5. And then you had the Rangers -1.5 over the Cardinals. That was wrong. Cardinals winning 1-0. So kind of tough on the baseball block for you. I will say this. I'm guessing you're going to do some U.S. Open golf. Did not work well for you last time when we had a golf major.
I am staying away from golf to be certain. I'm going
good.
actually with an all baseball
Same.
card. But I mean, I can't really get away from my first five. So we've got a really good pitching matchup between the Guardians with Aaron Savale and Michael Wacha from the Padres, both of them with really low earned run averages. So I'm going to go Guardians and Padres under 4.5 runs in the first 5. I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Rays. All of their numbers are really juiced because they're going up against the Oakland Athletics, but you can do an alternate spread on Bovada. So give me the Rays -1 run for the first 5 innings. You can get that at -110. Tyler Glasnow for the Rays, their ace, and some guy whose ERA is over 7 for the
A's
Oakland
have won
Athletics.
2 straight in this series. Oakland, baby, the reverse protest.
The Rays are due, I guess. That was actually really phenomenal to see.
Yeah.
And then I'll go ahead. Framber Valdez has been really good this season. Give me the Astros -1.5 runs on the full game. So yeah, that's where I'm going to go. So Guardians, Padres under 4.5 in the first 5. Rays -1 in the first 5. Astros -1.5.
I love it, Tom. I've got the Astros -1.5 as well, baby.
There we go.
That's how we do it. Last time we agreed, Tom, it went well. Valdez, as you mentioned, is a very good pitcher, 2.36 ERA, but he's only 6-5 this season. What does that tell me? The Astros offense is due to support him. The Astros are the much better team against the Nationals. He's the better pitcher against Josiah Gray. They're at home. They should win by 2 or more. No problem. I've got the Reds money line against the Royals. We spent all this time talking about how the A's are the worst team in baseball. Maybe it's the Royals who are the worst team in baseball. So Reds have won 2 straight in this series. -115 on the money line against Kansas City. Sounds almost too good to be true. Reds are 2 under 500 this season and just 1 under 500 on the road. Meanwhile, Royals are 9-25 at home. Can't buy a win nowhere, Tom Casselman. It's the Royals, baby. Daniel Lynch, their starter, hasn't won a game yet this season, and it won't start tonight. And then lastly, Red Sox, Rockies over 10.5 runs at +100, plus money worked for me last week. Let's run it back. +100 on over 10.5 runs. Rocky starter Austin Gomber has an ERA of, Tom, get this, just under 8. That's not good. That's not good. Meanwhile, the Red Sox starter Garrett Whitlock, ERA just under 5. It was 7-6 last time out with these two teams. Looking for a lot of runs today for Boston and Colorado in Fenway Park. Fenway Park, baby. Go Sox. So that's the rundown for the betting locks of the week. Looking forward to a 3-0 week for both of us.
Absolutely. That brings us to trivia, in which I have 2. One is very topical with the NBA Finals. Another one is an interesting little piece of just apropos of nothing baseball weirdness. So where do you want to go with this one?
Let's do baseball first, then we can do your basketball, because I'm going to end with the basketball too. So keep it, transitioning nicely.
Absolutely. So for the baseball one, JT Realmuto, catcher for the Philadelphia Phillies, has accomplished these 3 things. He has homered in an All-Star game. He did that in 2021. Okay. He hit an inside the park homer in 2022. And in 2023, just a couple days ago, he hit for the cycle. Now, and it's, again, apropos of nothing, only one other baseball player in Major League Baseball history has done all three things: homer in an All-Star game, hit an inside the park home run, and hit for the cycle. I'll give you one hint. You can consider him an all-time great player. Can you tell me who that player is?
First off, what is apropos of nothing? I got to be educated first on that.
Oh, it's there's no significance to any of this. I mean, homering in an all-star game, hitting an inside the park home run, and hitting for the cycle are three very random events that don't really say much about the quality of player. So it's just
you were in an
random
all-star game.
happenstance. You know, it's random happenstance that makes it kind of cool because it's been done only once before. If you cherry pick those specific events.
Okay. Cal Ripken.
Not Cal Ripken, but in a certain kind of way, you are right in the ballpark.
Frank Robinson.
Nope, you're getting a
Brooks
little cold.
Robinson.
Nope.
Eddie Murray.
Nope.
Is it an Oriole?
It is not an Oriole. But this player is connected to Cal Ripken for something else.
Is it a shortstop?
Not a shortstop.
How is he connected to Cal Ripken? Did they play in the same era?
They played in very different eras.
Oh. Honus Wagner?
No, but you're getting closer as far as the timing goes.
Ty Cobb.
Nope.
Shoeless Joe Jackson. So
what's the thing for which Cal Ripken is perhaps most famous?
Most games in a row played?
And who did he surpass?
Oh, God, that's a great question. I have no idea, Tom. But I'm guessing it's an old school player because you're saying it's close to...
Very old, yeah.
Very old? So, older, like more modern than Ty Cobb.
I think so. I'd have to see when Ty Cobb played, but...
Oh, God.
He wasn't really playing at a great time for this country.
World War I?
A little later.
Oh, later than World War
I. Okay, yeah. So a little later than Ty Cobb, because Ty Cobb played in the early 1900s.
What team did he play on? Babe Ruth?
Teammates with Babe Ruth.
Oh gosh, Mickey Mantle.
Nope.
No. Roger Maris.
Nope. Those guys were all later.
Yeah, they were later. You're right. And Joe DiMaggio was later too.
Nicknamed the Iron Horse.
Lou Gehrig?
Lou Gehrig, yeah.
Yeah.
Most consecutive games until Cal Ripken. Lou Gehrig is the only other player in baseball history to hit a home run in an all-star game, have an inside the park home run, and also hit for a cycle over varying parts of his career. So, like I said,
good company for the Phillies catcher.
It's just a bunch of random little historical bits that I thought was really interesting.
Lou Gehrig had the most consecutive games played before Cal Ripken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where you have the etymology of somebody getting Wally pipped, because Wally Pipp was the first baseman for the New York Yankees, played every day, then he was like out for a day or something like that. Lou Gehrig filled in and didn't sit for like 2,000 something games.
What's etymology?
That it's the root or the history of the phrase. So if somebody says, you get Wally pipped, it's where you have somebody who's in a position, an incumbent gets replaced, and then that replacement is there forever and a half.
Wow. Yeah, Tom, I know we'll do a few less shows this summer. I'm going to miss hearing your vocabulary. You got to like text me like a vocabulary word
of the day.
I'm growing smarter every second I get on this show with you. All right, hit me with your NBA trivia question.
So the NBA trivia is that Christian Brown has won an NCAA national championship and an NBA Finals in back-to-back years, because he was on Kansas last year, and then this year's a rookie for the Denver Nuggets. The easy question is, how many others have done it? And then the hard question will be getting names. I'll give you two of the names though, because I would never in a million years even know that these people
Well,
exist.
Bill Walton is one of them, I think.
Not Bill Walton.
Not Bill Walton. All right, so I'm going to
Mm-mm.
say 5 guys have done it ever.
Very, very close.
6. 4.
Four guys.
Okay.
Christian Brown is now the fifth person to have done it. I'll give you two of the names because I don't really know who Henry Bibby and Bill Thompson are. I don't know if those names ring bells, but the
Bill
other two guys who
Thompson
have done
does
it.
for some reason. What did he play for?
Oh, I'll have to look it up.
Is it the St. Louis team?
Maybe
I don't know.
Bill Thompson, NBA. But as I'm looking it up, there are two other names. Let's see. He played for the Heat, the Lakers. Yeah, he was
Okay.
drafted by the Heat. Played for the Warriors as well.
Okay. And
Oh,
what,
did
like
he
the
only
50s?
no, like 1990 and 1991. Like, did he only play 2 years? Let me look at his
Oh,
stats real
not the
quick.
person I'm thinking of. Not the person I'm
Okay,
thinking
no,
of at
he
all.
played. Yeah, he played 300 games, had a career average of 8.6 points per game, 5.4 rebounds. So, kind of like Christian Brown as of right now, at least.
He
A
was
role
really
player.
good in what was that, game 4?
Four? Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was
By the
key in
way,
that.
his twin brother, Mizzou
Hmm.
Tiger, Christian Braun, Kansas Jayhawk. I used to
Hmm.
interview his twin brother for Mizzou. He was a role player who was
Oh,
a good
interesting.
dunker. He was like their second guy off the bench, maybe for Mizzou when I was maybe second or third. But he was a
Hmm.
bench player, but a guy that did play.
Yeah.
A good dunker. Good dunker. Actually, I interviewed him multiple times when I covered Mizzou. So fun
Yeah.
little connection there. Also, Christian,
Absolutely.
by the way, won. I think it was was it 3 high school state championships as well? The guy won a lot, so he's been winning forever.
Absolutely. But
So
there's two other names on that list who have won a college championship, followed immediately by an NBA championship. Both are Hall of Fame. You'd know them. These are the all time greats.
okay, all time greats.
Hmm.
So that would mean you would win your rookie year.
Correct.
Magic did
Magic.
Michigan State, the Lakers rookie
Hmm.
year. Yeah, obviously that's an easy one.
Hmm.
It's not LeBron because he didn't go to college.
Nope.
It's not MJ because he won his freshman year in college. Didn't win for a few years with the Bulls. Okay. Let me think. Let me think here. Is it Kareem?
It is not Kareem.
Not Kareem. Okay. Huh.
You've already mentioned him on this show.
Already mentioned him on this show. No, because he won later. It's not Wilt.
Mm.
No, mentioned him on this show. Oh, Bill Russell.
It is Bill Russell, the San
Yeah.
Francisco Dons, and then the Boston
That's
Celtics.
right. Yeah, because he won so many championships. That's the easy answer,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Oh, I love that. Bill Russell. Icon of the game. By the way, I love how the NBA has honored Bill Russell with the number 6
Mhm.
on the jerseys, on the basketball courts. Definitely a very cool thing. All
Absolutely.
right.
What do you have for trivia?
So I swear, Tom, that I did this exact same trivia question last year, and there's just one more name on it. So I want to see
Okay.
how much you remember last year, because I think
Oh boy. Okay.
I think you'll do pretty good. There's maybe one of these guys you may not get. You may need some clues, but
Okay.
Nikola Jokic became the 11th player in the history of the NBA with at least 2 regular season MVPs and at least 1 NBA final MVP. So 10
Okay.
other guys all time have done it. Obviously, they're all time legends. Pretty sure you should have no problem getting at least 9 of the 10. Maybe some clues involved, but
Mhm.
you might go 10 for 10. We're talking legends of the
Oh,
game.
of course. Yeah.
A lot of these guys are actually more modern too.
So the first one I'm going to go with is Michael Jordan,
Yep.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Not Shaq. No, let me see. Let me double check.
Oh,
No, I don't think it's Shaq. No,
he
because
didn't have two.
he
Oh
had
wow,
one MVP for Shaq.
that seems
Crazy, right?
criminally low.
Well, and Shaq had
Okay.
one and Kobe had one too, so don't even guess Kobe.
Yeah, because that was going to be where I was going next. LeBron
Yeah.
James.
LeBron is 2. It's funny because I have it written down Michael Jordan 1, LeBron James 2. I have all 10 written
Yeah.
out just so I have it.
Okay. Let's see. Who else is there? Steph Curry.
Steph Curry's the more recent one. He got it last year.
Yeah.
There's another
So,
very, 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 very recent one. Right, the guy that did it right before Steph Curry.
s- oh, right before Steph. So not Giannis.
Well, no, it is Giannis,
Oh, it
actually.
is?
I'll just give it
Oh, okay.
away. I gave it away, but it was Giannis.
Oh, that's right. Because Steph Curry didn't win his first NBA Finals MVP until last year.
Correct. And
Okay.
that's
So
why I
then,
swear I did this trivia question last year.
yeah. Okay. So that's going to dovetail into me saying Kevin Durant because I know he's won, but I don't know if he has enough regular season MVPs. I don't think he has the
One,
one.
one.
Dirk didn't win regular season MVP, so I won't go
Nope.
with him.
I'm gonna bold the ones you got already. So it's Jordan, LeBron,
Hmm.
Curry. I gave you Giannis because
Yeah.
I'm nice, Tom.
So I mean, play the hits. Magic Johnson,
Yep,
Larry Bird,
yep,
Kareem,
yep,
Wilt,
yep.
Jerry West.
Not Jerry West.
I
I
thought it
think
was a
it's
sneaky one because he won the Finals MVP,
the
even though the
inaugural
Lakers
year,
lost. Yeah.
and that was the inaugural year of the Finals MVP. So it's not Bill
Oh, I didn't
Russell
even know that.
because he wasn't
Right.
even around by the time he played.
Right.
So I think
How many more do I have to
Wes,
go?
you have two more to go, and these are the two hardest ones. One of them
Hmm.
you'll definitely get. The other one I'm not sure if you'll get. One you should know. You grew up watching him,
Tim Duncan.
Tim Duncan. So there's one left. This guy, as legendary
Presumably,
as he is, this is probably the
yeah.
worst player on this list.
Yeah, would it be like an other Laker, like an Elgin Baylor,
Not Elgin
or
Baylor.
oh, who's the?
It's not a
There's like
Laker.
another Laker. Oh, it's not a Laker.
Not
Okay,
a Laker.
maybe like Willis Reed for the Knicks.
Not Willis Reed. I'm guessing he had one regular season MVP because I know he did win
Mm-hmm.
Finals MVP.
Yeah, Moses Malone.
Moses Malone. There you
Yeah, the
go.
the 76er team's there. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Nicely done. That's what I
thank you.
thought. I was guaranteeing myself you're gonna get Moses Malone last. I was about to give you a clue, but nicely done, Tom. Tip of the cap. Iconic list: Nikola Jokic,
Mhm.
Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Giannis, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Stephen Curry, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Moses Malone, Tim Duncan, Will Chamberlain. 11 players all time with 2 MVPs in the regular season and at least one Finals MVP. Like I said, Jokic, if he can stay healthy, I think it's safe to say that he will enter the pantheon for me as a top 10 greatest player of all time. I think it's looking pretty good right now for him.
Yeah, he's absolutely a shoe-in Hall of Famer as of right now. So, yeah, it brings us to statements of the week. And I mean, to be honest, I don't know how strong of a statement that this really can be considered. I possibly have done it before, but
Sure.
as far as the NFL is concerned, it absolutely sucks that the franchise tag is a thing that the NFL teams and franchises have at their disposal, because essentially it acts as an artificial cap on what players and what teams can do, and how much players can earn. I mean, this is exemplified by looking at what the Ravens were able to do with Lamar Jackson, and we're seeing it playing out now in the running back market. And I understand that running back
Big
is
one.
valued at a different level, is viewed as more interchangeable than it was even when we were growing up and looking at guys like an Edgerrin James, Sean Alexander, Curtis Smart, like all these great running backs that would put up these amazing seasons. LaDainian Tomlinson, of course. Now we're not
Adrian
seeing running
Peterson.
backs get valued at quite that level, and we're seeing the guys like Josh Jacobs for the Raiders and Saquon Barkley for the Giants not signing their tenders because it's a $10 million contract, and these guys recognize themselves the very limited scope that they have as far as time goes, for making an impact in their careers and earning the most money that they can. So it's a shame that the teams have worked around the edges to basically make sure all their positions are filled so that they can use this franchise tag on running backs and put the player in a really, quite frankly, a difficult position, where fans are saying, well, you're a running back no matter how good you are. What do you expect? I'm going to cheer for this piece of laundry that I know some other guy can wear for a lot less money, which somehow is the prerogative of fans, even though it's not really our dollars and cents that are going to this sort of thing. So the franchise tag in the NFL sucks. And as I'm talking now, I'm also remembering a different statement that I had thought of before I had written this one down.
You can
It's
hit me
also
with
money
it.
related. So
Contract Casselman.
in the Athletic, Evan Drellich has a report about how the MLB is looking to put in restrictions on how much franchises can spend on front office personnel and analytics staffs, which is absolutely ridiculous to me. I mean, we've already seen that baseball has a soft cap with the whole luxury tax that they have on contracts. We already see them put in things like compensation picks for first, give up a first round draft pick if you're signing a free agent who's been tagged. And we've also seen them now curtail how much you can spend on the international market. It's getting to the point where baseball seems to be saying everybody is only going to be playing by the exact same set of rules because you have all of these 100 ply Charmin soft baseball billionaire owners who can't stand the fact that other teams are, heaven forbid I say it, trying harder to win games and taking all these different avenues to doing that, and basically going to Major League Baseball and saying, hey, they're trying too hard. Mr. Manfred, make them stop trying so hard. They're making me look bad for not wanting to spend money on this baseball product. I mean, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. If you don't want to put the money into your baseball team, that is fine, but you shouldn't expect everybody else to have to lower their standards of competition just because it hurts your feelings and lowers the competitive field of play. You know what you can do? Put a damn baseball team on the field. Actually try to win if that is actually what matters to you. If you just want to cash checks and get ridiculed for it, you can do that too. I mean, money can insulate you from a lot of unhappiness. But as I was talking about contract stuff, that just triggered in my head as something I had read recently, and I just didn't jot it down. But if that goes through, that is absolutely insane to me. That basically baseball would be stripping away any sort of influence that teams can exert on how they can have a best baseball team that they can put together.
Yeah. I mean, look, I completely agree about everything you said, I agree about.
Yeah.
But the franchise tag with the NFL, that's your transition to baseball, too. I feel the same way about the running back devaluement as
Mm-hmm.
I do about these rise of bullpen pitchers and not pitching your starting pitchers longer in games for baseball. What may be on average generally true because of analytics cannot be implied to every situation. If you have your ace pitcher who is top 5, top 10 baseball pitcher in the world, he will be better third time against the lineup than whatever reliever you can throw out there, and he'll be just fine. Guys back in the 1920s and 30s threw 50, 60 starts. So
Mm-hmm.
just like baseball is doing this whole let's put our bullpen pitchers in early, it makes sense for your 3 to 5 starter, but your 1-2 guy, it's getting used too much. The same concept applies to the NFL running back. You're talking about Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs led the NFL in rushing yards last season. Saquon Barkley, I think, was 4th or 5th. Then you add up his receiving yards as well. I'm willing to guess, don't quote me on this, but if not, top 3 in the league in total yards by running back. He was essentially the entire Giants offense. It all went
Mm-hmm.
through him. He did everything for that team. He is the most valuable player on that team. If you're going to pay Daniel Jones $40 million and you want to pay Saquon $10 million, that's just ridiculous.
Yep.
So this whole anyone's replaceable for a running back rule, that might apply to the average running back. That might apply to a backup running back. But we're talking top 5 running backs in the league, which Barkley and Jacobs are. You cannot replace those guys with anybody. So man up, pony up, take out the wallet, pay those guys. 100%
Absolutely.
agree with you, Tom. It's just complete malarkey of what we're seeing on the NFL running back contract side of things. By the way, like a running back used to be the MVP in the league back in the day.
Yeah.
So I know we're never going to have the whole importance of the running back ever, but I'm going to kind of coin the NBA analogy. The centers are coming back in the NBA. You know, Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, the last few MVPs, NBA
Hmm.
champs, Jokic and Giannis. Could the running back have a little, regrowth? You never know. These sports change so much over time. So definitely very interesting stuff. Normally, Tom, I have a very bold statement. You know me, I love coming up with all sorts of crazy things. I'm going to do more of a salute and just put this into perspective right now. What a party it's got to be in Serbia right now. It's, the song Party in the USA. It's
Hmm.
party in Serbia. The population of Serbia as of 2021, Wikipedia, we're going to trust it that it's right, 6.834 million. I know that sounds like a lot,
Wow.
but the world population is what, billions of people? We're talking what, less than one, well, less than 1%. We're talking like, I don't even know the math, but less than half of a percent of the world's population is in Serbia, right?
Hmm.
You look at what Nikola Jokic is doing right now, the best basketball player in the world, might end up being a top 10 player of all time. And then we have Novak Djokovic, who's the best tennis player in the world, might be the greatest tennis player ever. And that really hurts me to say this. It stings me. Every inside of my body. I can't stand saying that because I'm a Federer Nadal fan.
Sure. Yeah.
But for such a small country to have arguably two of perhaps, I mean, it's so hard comparing sports and eras, but maybe two of the top 30 athletes ever, Tom. That's not so crazy to say. I mean, two of the all time legends when it comes to sports.
Hmm.
You can find talent anywhere. Just look hard enough, man. Just look hard enough. There's talent anywhere. I mean, we have Croatia, which is even smaller of a country than Serbia, I think. They finished top 3 in the world at the World Cup 8 years, 8 years ago, and then this most recent World Cup. So just very interesting for me how that works out. I've got a friend from high school, George. He's Serbian, and he's has a lot of Serbian pride. You know, us
Hmm.
Eastern Europeans have a lot of Serbian, Bulgarian pride, etc. I just him and his dad right now because I texted him and he's very happy. Just must be on cloud 9. I mean, Serbia at 6 in the morning, Tom. I don't know if you saw the scenes. They were partying it up for Nikola
Oh, I can
Jokic.
believe it. I can believe it.
It just and Serbians they're interesting people. They're very, very passionate. I know every country has nationalism.
Hmm.
Serbians' nationalism is a whole nother level, man. They have so much country pride, and just happy for the country of Serbia, man. And Nikola Jokic
Yeah.
and Novak Djokovic is Jokic says, "I'm the fat kid from Serbia." He never even thought he would be in the NBA. They asked him like, "What do you think about this?" He's like, "I never thought I would even make the NBA."
Hmm.
It's just crazy, man. So it's
Yeah,
very
and it's
interesting.
wild that there's a photo of him when he was like a little kid wearing a Denver Nuggets
Nuggets
sweater. I don't know
sweater,
if you saw that
yeah.
photo.
I did see that.
That's
That's so
just
cool.
phenomenal how weird the universe can be sometimes.
Yeah.
And wonderful.
So
Wonderful and
and
weird.
wonderful. All right. Well, hey, that was a wonderful show, Tom Casselman. I know that we're going to take a little bit of a summer break, but we'll regroup. We'll see when the next show is. Could be 3-4 weeks, but we'll definitely do a show to hit on NBA free agency. We'll
Mhm.
go over the NBA draft, a baseball midseason
Yep.
recap, so to speak. So guessing probably the next 3 or 4 weeks we'll be back. So looking forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, stay in touch. Let's keep talking, and we'll see you when we see you. Thanks, and have a good one.